Two men are talking when one of them spots a drunk woman and warns the other. She asks if they could take her home and the man says yes. She then says she didn't have the money to pay for the trip and the man says he couldn't work for free, but the other says he would take her. She then thanks him and the man tells her to get in his car. He then helps her to her car and into it. He calmly guides the woman down the street to his car while the other man watches from afar. He then helps the woman into her car, as she couldn't do it alone due to the state she was in. Inside the car, the man warns that he would start the trip and the woman, still very drunk, says that's okay. He then starts the car and drives away. The journey continues and the woman ends up sleeping in the back seat of the car. The man realizes this and has an idea. Later, she wakes up and realizes that that wasn't the way to her house. He tells her to calm down, but she despairs and tries to open the door to get out of there. The man then says that she was supposed to stay calm and not disturb him. Later the man tells her to wait a bit in the car as he has something to do and gets out of the car. He then enters his house and sees his wife lying on the couch. He tries to wake her up, but the one who ends up waking up is his daughter who greets him. He says he had arrived home and his wife wakes up. She asks if something had happened, since he had arrived home early. She says she couldn't sleep well that night because her daughter was in so much pain and she didn't have medicine to give her. He then says that he had returned early to deliver the money so that she could buy medicine for their daughter. He says that with that money she could buy something. The wife then thanks the man and says that she would take a shower first and then buy medicine for her daughter. At that moment, the woman manages to get out of the car and goes to the man's house. She hides under the window and watches inside. She then sees the man's family and then runs off. The man then tells his wife that he needed to get back to work and if she needed anything she could call him. The man's daughter then says goodbye to her father. In the car, the man apologizes to the woman for the delay, as he needed to stop at his house quickly. She says there was no problem. Meanwhile, the man's boss arrives and asks the other man about him. He says that he had gone on a free trip and the boss says that he had seen on his app that he had changed the route of the trip. The other man says he didn't know anything, but the boss asks why he didn't warn him. The boss then gets mad about the situation and calls the man. He asks the man why he changed his trajectory and, moreover, he was taking a free trip. He says he could explain, but the boss says he didn't need to explain anything as he was fired. The man says he really needed that job and asks him not to do it. The boss says he was just supposed to leave the car at the company and then he would be fired. The man then hangs up his phone sadly and the woman says it was her fault. She says she didn't have any money at the time, but she would pay the man. He then tells her to take it easy and says that in the situation she was in, she was lucky he found her. She says he was a good man and praises him for his attitude. He says he would drop her off at home and thanks her for the compliment. The next day, the wife tells her daughter that there was only that much food for her to eat and that they needed to wait for his father to return so he could bring more money. The little girl says that everything was fine and eats the bread. The man then arrives at his house. He greets his wife and daughter. He says that was all the money he made that day and that he was fired. She asks how he could be fired. He says that the day before, when he came to his house, he ended up deviating from his trajectory because of a free trip and for that he was fired. The wife then says she didn't believe he lost his job over a woman, but he says that wasn't the case. He says he thought that woman might be his wife or his daughter in need of help. The wife then says that he didn't have to defend the woman but to worry about his daughter. He says he worried about his daughter, but the wife asks what they were going to do now, as he was out of a job and she didn't work. The man apologizes to his wife and says he would resolve the situation. Sometime later, the woman knocks on the man's door. The wife answers and asks what she wanted. The woman tells her to take it easy and that she was there to help. The man then arrives and tells her to come in. He then asks what she wanted. She says that even though she didn't have the money to pay the man the day before, she was there to pay for his trip. The wife then says that she was playing with them as she didn't have the money to pay. She then says that the day before, she had gone out and had a bit to drink, so someone ended up stealing her purse and that's why she didn't have the money. She says that when he stopped by her house, she saw the plight of the man's family and when he got back in his car, the man ended up losing his job because of her. She then says that she was there to help them. The man then says that she didn't need to pay anything, but the wife says that she didn't believe he wouldn't accept her help, since she had caused her husband to lose his job. The man says he only did it to help her. The woman then hands the wife some bills of money and says that they could call her whenever they need something. She then says if the man needed a job he could talk to her and hands him a card. The wife then thanks the woman and apologizes for the way she treated her. She says she was afraid she wouldn't be able to afford the treatment her daughter needed. The man is then very happy with the job opportunity and thanks the woman for her help. The woman then apologizes for everything that had happened because of her and says that she wanted to help them however she could. She then says she had an appointment to go to and then leaves. The wife then says that she ended up misbehaving, but the man says that kind of thing happens. He says he would be embarrassed too if it happened to him and says he was glad it all ended well.